So the FBI releases its crime data each year. This year, new FBI crime data gives Governor DeSantis new talking points in Florida versus California debate. This one was rather one-sided. You know how sometimes you look at the data and you go, that's kind of a push one way or the other. Not this one. Let's get into it. Here we go. And so I think this factor will play heavily into upcoming debates. We've got DeSantis versus Governor Gavin Newsom. DeSantis from Florida, Newsom from California. Newsom is saying he is not going to run for president, but you know what? He's gonna down the road. Maybe it's not 2024, but 2028, that wouldn't be surprising. So far in the 2024 election, he is saying that he's going to back our fearless leader, President Joe Biden. The more I watch Biden talk about the whole Israel deal. That is straight up elder abuse. I mean, that guy is having a tough time cognitively putting, just even reading the words off the teleprompter. That's becoming difficult to watch. It's just, the FBI has handed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis a fresh talking point in his upcoming debate with left-wing California Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom. Earlier this week, the FBI released the national violent crime statistics for 2022. Since 2019, the year that both DeSantis and Newsom were elected leaders of their respective states, violent crime in Florida has plunged 31.5%. And in California, it's up 13%. All right, so let's take a quick stop on some of those numbers. The California, it's up 13%. California has had some record numbers of criminal activity, depending on which stats you look at. Some are higher than others, right? But this one here, comparing with Florida just kicks California's ass in so many different metrics. The one metric that we're going to hear about is, but California protects the ability for women to have abortions. All right. Or we have far more, California does, offering for the LGBTQ plus community. We really, really protect those folks. It's like, okay, if those are your battles. But then when it comes down to crime, to violent crime, migration, where people are moving from, they are literally moving from California to Florida because of everything that Florida has to offer right now and the policy that Florida has embraced versus the policy that California is known for, which is overregulation. Everything's too expensive. Taxes are through the roof. You've got a state income tax. Super expensive real estate. The list is not conducive to business. Polar opposite in Florida. I remember growing up here as a West Coast kid, specifically Seattle, all the crazy stories that come out of Florida, they'd all be from Florida. It was a joke. You'd hear stories on the radio and be like, that person's from Florida for sure. Now all the folks are from California, right? Or Portland. Portland, pound for pound, has some of the wildest stories, and it has to do with how they've made open air drug use and homelessness just a, part of society. So when you've got that, you're encouraging people to make a lifestyle of it, and you will see people interviewed time and time and time again in Portland that are just off their rockers, and they're taking a bunch of drugs and they're doing crazy stuff. How about we had an airplane going from Everett, which is community to the north of where I'm sitting by about 40-minute drive, from Everett down to San Francisco. And one of the pilots, he was not the main pilot, but he was in the cockpit. He had taken a little bit of shrooms, just a scooch, just a microdose to help him with his depression. And he pulled turn off the engines. Hey, it's terrible. He yanked on those bad boys because he thought he was dreaming and he wanted to wake himself up. That did not work out well. So decriminalizing all these drugs, you're going to have a little fallout from that one way or the other. Same thing here in Eastern Washington. We had a big festival this summer, and a kid from the Army who had a gun in his truck was tripping on some mushrooms and had a bad trip and shot his girlfriend and killed a bunch of people at the festival. Shrooms. So all those folks out there that want to say, shrooms and microdoses are fine, till you're on a bad trip and you take a bunch of people out, right? So the whole drug thing. So nationally, violent crime dropped 1.7% in 2022 because we've had some record-setting years. And so even if we're kind of holding steady, it's because we're holding steady on escalated crime. Now, a lot of folks want to say, yeah, but this misdemeanor crime and this one are down, this one. It's the violent ones. And what it comes down to is people always report shootings, and they report car theft, and they report assaults and murders, and typically the R word. A lot of that gets reported because it's so, I got to go report this. Whereas your car gets broken into, not necessarily so. You know what I mean? Your store gets broken into. People have gotten over that. So there's a lot of statistics that to me are being wildly underreported. And if we had the full picture, you'd sit there and go, yep, this makes sense. Now the data and the narrative with what I'm hearing, those make sense. So in terms of actual rates, California's number of violent crimes per 100,000 residents went from 442 in 2019 to 500 in 2022. In Florida, it's gone from 378 per 100,000 to 259. So literally half. Remember, those are per 100,000 population. Per 100,000 population. So, and these are the violent criminal actions, right? So Florida, half. And no wonder people are moving there. Cheaper real estate, less taxation, more pro-business. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure this one out. And yet, California is still holding the line. Literally, Gavin Newsom was campaigning in Florida and putting up billboards in Florida, trying to pitch, all right, this is what we have to offer. Maybe the LGBTQ lifestyle, maybe, we know a bunch of you have moved from California to here, but hey, those rights might be impacted down the road. It's not making people move back in droves. It's just not, right? So what else do we have here? There's for instance, California in 2022 reported almost 4 times as many robberies as Florida and more than triple the rate of stolen cars and aggravated assaults. Aggravated assaults 75% higher than Florida's. So some basic crime numbers. California here, Florida here. There's no comparison. Newsom has tried to draw a contrast between his state and Florida by pointing to LGBTQ policies. All right. Okay. All right. And what immediately comes to mind there is that if you're going to go down that road, you have to recognize the only thing that you've got is that you've got better policies for a very small percentage of the overall community. A lot of people are in favor of the LGBTQ and all that represents. They're pro, just endorsing whatever it is that grouping of folks has go on. But it's not enough to run a campaign on. It's just not. Florida has so many other positive things going on. And some people would say, and some Californians would say, yeah, but look at the whole Disneyland thing and the whole go woke, go broke. I mean, it's just been a disaster in Florida. Not per the FBI, right? Not per the FBI. Florida did not defund their police departments. Florida basically didn't even close down during the pandemic, and they closed down for just a little scooch, right? And are they all dying? Were their numbers wildly escalated relative to states like the one that I live in, Washington? Still got people here running out to get their booster shot. I want to get my booster and I want to get this and I want to get that. It's like, okay, all right. Okay. Yeah, pass. I think I'm just going to pass on that. DeSantis, however, has countered by noting that the significant difference in crime rates and the fact that California, as he said in June, is hemorrhaging wealth and hemorrhaging population. California outpaces Florida in each individual category, sometimes dramatically so. Newsom has presided over the first reduction in population in California's history ever. Population California up, 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 up. Well, you've put so many policies in place that people are now, and that's even with all of the folks that are coming into California for their sanctuary city status. So the numbers, crime numbers, population, California's got the LGBTQ. All right. Okay. Yeah, you got that. You got that one for sure. Does that move a needle anywhere? I don't think so. DeSantis has said the numbers show people don't want to live in the Petri dish of American leftism. We can all cite the statistics, DeSantis told Fox News in June. Hopefully, DeSantis can put on a good show in that debate that they have coming up. It's kind of a nebulous debate, but it's a debate of, all right, here's your top guy from the left who is actually capable of stringing together a couple of sentences on his own, unlike, and it's not just on the Democrat side, right? You've got some folks on the Republican side. It's like, you know what? At some point in time, we need to put some age limits in place because this has just become absurd. You're running a whole bunch of people that are just, it's not that you get wildly out of touch as you get old, but it's not representative of, what the vast majority of us have going on in our lives. And I think you get this disconnect on both sides, and that's who's running the country. And then the rest of us sit around going, what in the F is going on? And then you flick on News for Reasonable People and you hear some guy talk about, well, Florida's doing good. California is bleeding out. So will it be enough? I mean, we read these stories, and in the last election cycle, it was supposed to be the red wave, right? What happened to that? Wah, wah, wah. Went sideways, didn't it? Went sideways. Never happened. That whole wave, that was just a little bloop. No big wave. No big wave. In fact, it kind of went the other way. So we've always got these stories. We've always got these numbers, and particularly since the pandemic, we've had a lot of these stories and statistics. Is it enough to, change the overall picture? And what I always have to say is people want what they want. They're not willing to look at, raw data and go, oh, well, yeah, okay, therefore I'm going to vote for that other guy. Yeah, makes sense. I get it. Yep, understood. All right. Yeah, I think people vote along political lines and they'll be damned if Florida's in better shape. Yeah, but they're going to find something to rag on. What about the weather in Florida? A terrible mosquito population in Florida. Horrible, awful. What about those hurricanes? What about the wild windstorms that come off of the ocean? Hurricanes. What about those? Tropical storm? I don't want to live anywhere close to that. Well, you can say that as well. But California just has so much stuff going on. And I've had a handful of friends, not friends, but acquaintances that I have known that have made the move from Seattle down to there, and they're coming back. They are coming back. But I've had so many more people move from Washington and go to Florida, and we've helped them on the Summit side. Sell their house, move to Florida. Sell their house, move to Florida. Sell their house, move to Idaho, move to Montana, move to Wyoming, move to away from the West Coast. Idaho, that's not much of a stretch, but it's wildly different country. Even though Idaho is on the border of, basically where Wazoo is, Washington State University. It's right there. You might as well be a world away when you enter into Idaho because it's got its own drill, and that's what attracts a lot of people coming from a crazy state like Western Washington, like where I'm situated or like where these folks in California are located. So I think the DeSantis is going nowhere in the polls. Got to be honest, right? Newsom isn't running, but if there was somebody to run for that side of things, I think Newsom would be right in there. All right. So DeSantis has some more talking points, talking up Florida. Will that be enough to make any kind of move? Who knows? Right? Who knows? I mean, this stuff has been ongoing. California has been having its decline for years now. But everybody just wants to say, yeah, but look at the overall magnitude of our economy. We're bigger than most, third world countries. And they are. They are. California has a significant impact on the overall production in the U.S., right? I mean, you just can't avoid that. But so much of the stuff, so much of the policy, so much of the homelessness. California has a third of the homelessness in the entire United States, right? Spending billions and billions and billions of dollars, and it's just gotten worse. Crazy stuff. So will DeSantis be able to use this, and will he be able to kind of work his way through those talking points? I sure hope so. He is not nearly as charismatic as Governor Newsom. Love or hate Governor Newsom, and I don't like him. I think a lot of times what he says it's wrong and it makes me angry. But where DeSantis is involved, I find him to be a little glib. I think he's right, but he doesn't express it. Most of the time he is right, but sometimes he expresses it in a very short, clipped manner. And if he was just a little bit more explanatory and had a little bit more personality, whereas what did he tell those kids that were just shocked? They were up at some school event. He's like, kids, you can put the masks away. He just laid into these kids for wearing a mask out on a stage at their school event because he was up there talking. And what did he say? Something to the effect of, the showboating is over or something like that. That he could have really worked that. And instead, he got blamed for, you made the children feel bad. They're doing what they think is right, which is wearing a mask. And he's like, hey, the pandemic's over. Take the masks off. You're not fooling anybody. And he, came across as a little bit, derogatory towards these kids. And he was totally right. Hey, kids, pandemic's over. You can give away that mask. Don't really need that anymore. You've got a vaccine. It's going to be okay. Plus, you're under 18. You're gonna be fine if you get the Rona statistically. Yeah. The fact that we're still talking about the Rona, I know it's out there. It's just everybody just was kind of like, yeah, we're tired of it. You see the memes out there, right? Of, some health official comes on, you're like, yep, not listening to that. Boop, done. We're not talking about the Rona because we just lived through that. We're not even recognizing that's a thing anymore. That's what it kind of feels like to me, is that we've just, don't have it in any of our news feeds. Don't have it in as option. What is happening with the coronavirus? How many people have died? What does the prognosis look for? You just hear these little snippets of, it's really rising in this community. And but no, you've got more people dying of fentanyl overdoses than you do of the Rona now, right? I mean, it's just a sad fact. Hopefully, DeSantis can use that in his argument too, because that is a real thing. We'll have to see. It'll be an interesting debate. I'm curious to watch it and see how that goes down. Each one of them is going to have some pretty impressive talking points. We'll just have to see. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.